Hello there. I think you guys should be able to hear it. If I set it up right, of course. So let's get started, shall we? Winking smiley. You feel it humming through every cell of your body for the first time. Magic. You are curled up fast asleep in the dusty dark of your den when it ripples through you, jolting you awake. Your bushy tail, which was wrapped cozily around your nose and paws for warmth, shifts to the side. Gingerly, you unfurl the rest of you. Your ears and nostrils twitch, your fur standing on end, your senses primed as if for a hunt. Every nerve in your body crackles with energy. You feel more alert and aware than ever before. A joyous symphony is singing through you, flowing from the tips of your ears and muzzle to the pads of your paws and out to the end of your tail. It is night time, and you're underground, but your keen eyes clearly see the earthen walls around you. Your blunt claws scratch restlessly at the dirt beneath your crouched form. The sinews in your legs are as taut as coiled springs, ready to run, to pounce, to somehow act on the energy coursing through you. Your heart pounds. It's time. You crawl through the tunnel from your den to the hilltop, trembling with anticipation. As you exit the tunnel, padding out onto the grassy hilltop, you feel a strange pressure behind you, as if your tail were being tugged in two directions at once by an unseen force. All at once, the feeling passes, replaced by an itch at the end of your spine. When you glance over your shoulder, you see that your single tail has split into two. You yip excitedly, wagging both tails. It is your 100th birthday, the day every fox awaits with eager longing. At last, you are a fox spirit, with magic coursing through your veins. You wish your family could see you now. You stand upon the hill you have always called home. The breeze carries a melody of scents that tickle your sensitive nose and whiskers. Stars twinkle overhead in a sky fading slowly from black to the deep blue of twilight. There are still at least 2 hours left before sunrise. You have time to test your new powers before you set off on the journey you must take. Some fox spirits use their magic to serve the gods, guiding lost souls and performing good works in their name. Others become folk heroes, beloved by the common people. Still others deceive and play tricks on people with their magic. And then there are fox spirits who go down a darker path, a path of rage and blood. What will be your first magic spell? A fire spell. I want to shine brightly for the whole world to see. A shape-shifting spell. I want to know the charms of flight. A telepathic spell. I want to trick someone. An invisibility spell. I'd like to learn how to hide from danger. You picture dancing flames and focus your will, calling up the magic from inside you. A pressure builds in your narrow chest like a wildfire roaring to life. Each beat of your heart rumbles like thunder in your pointed ears, your own pulses echoes in your head drowning out all other sounds. Your tails burn with heat and start to sweat beneath the fur, as if you still wore your shaggy winter coat rather than your sleek spring pelage. Suddenly, a fireball begins to crackle at the tip of each of your two tails. You can feel the heat of the fireballs, yet they do not burn you. With a flick of your tails, you send the twin fires into some twigs scattered in the grass before you. You squeal and gurgle with vulpine delight, dancing around the flames as a plume of smoke climbs into the sky. The grassy soil around the fire, which had been wet with dew, now feels drier and warmer beneath the pads of your paws. The fire sputters out before it can spread to the surrounding grass or the trees behind you. You stare at the charred twigs, panting with exhilaration. In time, you know your powers will grow even stronger. You sense that your newfound potential for magic has changed you in a fundamental way. What does the magic feel like to you? A web, connecting me to everything and everyone in the world around me. Power, raw and unstoppable, that I can wield to take down any obstacle. Delicious pleasure, setting my nerves on fire while making me tingle with joy. An urgent whisper in my ear. A smirk twitches at the corners of your muzzle as your mind blazes with possibilities. With this power at your beck and call, the universe is yours. You can't wait to seize it. As your tails twitch behind you in the breeze, you wonder where your magic will take you. You gaze down at the distant lights of the human village called Hoshimori, sparkling like a reflection of the stars in the valley that lies below your hill. Rice fields and other signs of cultivation mark the outer edges of Hoshimori, but the dark woods press in on all sides like the jaws of some great monster, closing around the little village. Yet you know from experience that the opposite is also true, that the village itself is a monster that eats foxes like you alive. You shudder and close your eyes. You were born a century ago, one wriggling kit in a litter of 7, in the very same den you slept in tonight. Your littermates had a variety of fur colors. What is the predominant color in your own coat? Your mother groomed your gray fur meticulously and kept you and your littermates warm, fed, and safe from harm. Your father worked hard to catch prey for your mother while she was busy nursing. As you and your siblings grew, you started roaming farther and farther from the den and learning to hunt under the watchful eyes of your parents. And then, one day, your parents gathered you all around them on the hilltop and told you why they had settled here. They were searching for the star ball. You had heard stories from your mother and father about the star ball before. Legends said the magical object had been spun from starlight itself by the ten-tailed vixen, the supreme vulpine deity whose tracks paint the skies. Supposedly, the star ball granted to any fox spirit who used it the power of immortality. Such fox spirits would never die of old age, would live on into eternity unless they were fatally wounded. You had always thought those were just stories. But this time, your parents confessed that the star ball was real. According to rumors, it was last seen near Hoshimori, the human village in the valley beyond your hill. Your young mind swam, your eyes wide as full moons. How did you imagine you would use your immortality? To understand the gods and help others. To accumulate power and wealth for my own use. To play tricks on others and win the adoration of the masses. You dreamed of using eternity to make the world a better place and seek enlightenment. You wanted to use your extra years to draw closer to the gods and start to comprehend their will and their true natures. You hoped to spend centuries studying sacred teachings, meditating, and reflecting the divine light yourself by helping those in need as much as possible. You still hold on to this dream. Your parents hoped to find the star ball and ensure a future for their family. Armed only with teeth and a dream, your parents, your siblings, and you set off toward Hoshimori to seek the star ball together. You were a mere fox back then. So were they. Your parents were still a season short of their 100th birthdays. You had no idea what horrors awaited you. You can still smell the blood, hear the yelps of surprise and whimpers of agony as your siblings fell around you one by one, victims of arrows and hidden snares. You can still see the rage-twisted face of the farmer as he stood in the rice field, firing arrow after arrow. "Vermin," he hollered. "I'll strike every one of you from the face of the earth." How did you evade death? I pressed my snare precisely the right way to release it. I was strong enough to simply chew through my snare. I was able to quickly run beyond the bow's range. I had the stamina to dodge arrows until he had none left. The farmer cursed his empty quiver. Then you saw a sight that made you freeze. Your brave, gentle father lay lifeless at the edge of the rice field. Time slowed. You walked over to your father, nudged his side disbelievingly with your nose. His ears did not flick. His eyes did not open. His side did not rise and fall. An arrow had pierced his heart. Spittle bubbled at the corner of his mouth. You whined, standing beside his body, shivering. You gazed out toward your fallen siblings scattered across the farmer's field. You hadn't allowed yourself the time to feel until that moment, when the truth hit you like a bolt of foxfire. They were gone. All gone. A feral scream set the world in motion again. Whirling around, you saw your mother charging across the field toward the farmer, her hackles raised, her eyes like wildfires. You ran after her, a scream of your own gurgling up in your throat. When she noticed you following her, she turned and snapped the air inches from your muzzle, causing you to yelp and jump backwards. "Run!" shrieked your mother. "Hide in the hills until your magic arrives." Tears burned in your eyes. "How can I leave you?" An arrow landed right between you. Your mother nipped your ear. "Go," she growled. Her voice brooked no argument. Reluctantly, you started running in the other direction. When you reached the opposite side of the field, you heard a howl of pain from the farmer and then a yelp from your mother. When you looked back, you saw your mother lying dead at the feet of the farmer. "No," you cried. To the farmer's human ears, the word you had spoken sounded like only a wordless vulpine scream. The farmer glared at you from afar, still clutching his knife. Turning away, you fled to the hills. For the past 2 decades, sleeping all alone in the den of your birth, you've spent a lot of time thinking about that day. How do you deal with the horrible memories? I meditate frequently to center my being, seeking peace and understanding. I rage against the gods and fantasize about revenge. I use exercise to distract myself, building my strength and stamina. Your misfortune made you less inclined to trust the gods. The gods didn't help you or your family when you needed them. If you want to get revenge on the farmer, you'll have to get it yourself. Imagining your vengeance provides you with some comfort. But it still hurts to pass by the thicket where you and your siblings used to play. To slumber in the musty den that still smells faintly of your littermates, your mother, and your father, even after all this time. You snap back to the present, gazing down at the lights of Hoshimori from your hill. The village looks so peaceful from far away, even beautiful. But the sight still sends a shiver down your spine. You know now how dangerous humans can be. But you're ready for them. You aren't a kid anymore, you're a fox spirit. You can use magic to defend yourself. You grin toothily, swishing your tails. You've outgrown your little den on the hill. It's time to leave. Before you begin your journey, you decide to eat a snack. A field mouse. Quail eggs. Mushrooms. I'm a vegetarian. You stalk forward, listening intently. At last, you hear a faint rustling in the grass. Your ears swivel toward it. You pounce in a clean arc, pinning the mouse beneath your forepaws. Kids play. After your snack, you bid your hill goodbye and climb down into the valley through the tangled wood. You weave expertly through the thick underbrush, your paws treading softly on the dew-damp earth, your tails tilting behind you for balance on the steeper parts of the slope. When you finally step out from the forest, you spot a road that leads toward Hoshimori. Under cover of darkness, you run beside the road as it skirts massive rice fields and farms. Rain falls, dampening your fur. Cherry trees and bushes growing by the road provide cover and fragrance as you run. Every now and then, you pause to sniff the wind and listen for humans. Luckily, no one else seems to be traveling toward the sleepy village at this late hour. But wait. There is someone up ahead. You slink closer to get a better look. An old woman stands beside a rickety wooden cart, weeping. The rain has turned the road to muddy slush, deepening its ruts and grooves, and you can see that the left front wheel of the woman's cart is entrenched in a particularly nasty pothole. The young ox attached to the cart shudders in the rain, pulling with all his might but still failing to free the wheel. "I'll never make it," wails the woman. She looks so sickly and frail, shivering in the downpour. If she slipped while trying to push the wheel herself, you have no doubt that she would hurt herself. Your memories of the farmer make you wary of humans. Yet this woman doesn't seem to pose a threat to you, and you're certain she won't make it to town without help. It's still at least a mile's walk to the edge of Hoshimori, and you haven't seen any other people on the road. What are you going to do? Approach the woman. Maybe I can help. Slip past her. I don't care about her and won't risk getting hurt. Play a trick on her using my wily charms. You step onto the road. "Hello," you say, wagging your tails. "I'm here to help." The woman wipes the tears from her cheeks and looks at you, surprised. "Oh, hello, little fox. I didn't see you there. You are kind to offer your assistance, but I doubt that you can move this wheel." "I can try." You step up to the trapped wheel. Pressing a forepaw into the mud beside the wheel, you reach out with elemental magic to the water and earth that make the mud and the wood that makes the wheel. You call to each of these elements with your mind, willing them to lift the wheel. For a moment, you lose yourself entirely, imagining that you are not a fox but part of all of these elements, wood and water and earth, all vibrantly alive in their own silent, secret ways. You forget to breathe, all of your mental energy focused on channeling your willpower into the larger wills of these great powers to accomplish this small and singular task. It works. The wheel rises above the hole, and the hole seals itself with tightly packed, drier dirt and rocks. The wheel lands gently on the mended patch of road. "Thank you so much," cries the woman. "I don't know how to repay you." "No need to repay me," you reply, stepping back from the cart. "Just get to town safely." Carefully, stiffly, she climbs back onto her cart. She squints at you through the rain. "Wouldn't you like a ride?" You notice that the ox tied to the front of the cart is snorting and shifting his weight anxiously as he looks at you. You turn to the woman and shake your head. "No, thank you. I prefer to walk." Her wrinkled brow furrows. "In this downpour? Are you sure?" You smile. "Don't worry about me. I've lived through greater storms than this." The woman smiles back, reassured. "Very well. I hope we will meet again, charitable fox spirit." She lashes her whip, and the ox-drawn cart lumbers on down the road toward the village. You spend the remaining mile of your trek to Hoshimori thinking about what you intend to do there. Why are you going to the village? "I want to seek the star ball, more carefully than last time. I want to get revenge on the farmer, whatever it takes. I'm not afraid. I want to make new friends. I want to stir up trouble, honing my skill at deception in the process." You hope to fulfill your parents' dreams for you by finding the object of their quest. If you do, you will be able to live longer than your natural lifespan of 200 years. If you're careful, you could even live forever. You could do so much with all those extra centuries. But you know you'll have to be more vigilant during your search than your parents were. You've learned from their tragic mistakes. You practice your magic as you travel farther down the road, improving at disguising yourself as a human and a few other useful spells. It's tricky without anyone to teach you, and you make many mistakes. Yet as you persist, you find that your instincts and imagination take over, allowing you to hone your craft and let the magic flow more smoothly. For the purposes of concealing yourself as a human, you discover that you can either shapeshift, transforming your whole body into that of a human, or paint a simple illusion over yourself to appear human to outside observers while remaining in your fox form underneath. Each approach has advantages and disadvantages. Illusions are quicker and allow you to retain your fox senses and magic, but they are less reliable. Shape-shifting is more stable but also more time-consuming, and while you gain the few advantages of a human body, such as being taller and stronger and having better color vision, you lose your vulpine assets while in human form. By the time you arrive at the wooden gate that marks the entrance to Hoshimori, dawn is breaking behind the mountains to the east, and the village is cast in a soft orange glow. The houses of the village are built with wooden beams, with thatched, steeply sloping, peaked roofs that scrape the sky in a more modest imitation of the distant mountain peaks behind them. Though the sun has broken through the eastern clouds and the rain has stopped, half the sky is still covered in clouds. The world is painted in strange, contrasting shades of silver and amber, light and dark. Following your nose and ears, you make your way to the square near the center of the village. You are surprised to find the square bustling with activity despite the early hour. Merchants are setting up stalls all along the square. The delicious scents of rice cakes, dried bonito, clams, and sardines flood your nose. However, you also smell a more familiar scent, a warm, earthy odor you can't quite place. You pad closer to get a better look, peering out from behind a stack of crates. You freeze. It's the farmer you met 20 years ago. He stands before a stall displaying jars, bowls, and teapots. He still strikes an imposing figure, but his hair is grayer now than when you last saw him. "Ho, Daichi," calls the merchant manning the stall. "You're here early." The farmer, Daichi, sighs. "Lots of work to do today." He hands the merchant some copper coins. "I wish you the best of luck with your sales today, Yuato." "Good luck with your work today, too, Daichi," says Yuato cheerfully, handing Daichi an elegant teapot. "I hope Ren will like this." Before you can react to seeing Daichi again, a woman runs past you, blocking your view. She wears the red skirt and white jacket common to the priestesses who tend the goddess Inari's shrine. Priestesses are knowledgeable about local myths and legends, so she might be a good person to ask about where you could start searching for the star ball. To your surprise, the humans of this village appear quite accustomed to interacting with fox spirits. In fact, you see a few members of your kind walking through the square, wearing the red bibs that mark them as servants of the goddess. They don't linger at the market stalls, however. They move purposefully, as if they have clear destinations in mind. They are probably running errands for the shrine. They don't seem inclined to stop and chat with anyone. But their presence bodes well for your ability to make inroads with the humans here. You consider your options. If you're cold-hearted enough not to hesitate, you could strike Daichi with foxfire. It would be satisfying to burn him as revenge for what he did to your family. If you're a more cautious creature, you could attempt to talk to Daichi in human form and start to earn his trust. Perhaps he's not really a bad man at heart. If you try to befriend him, you could work toward changing his mind about foxes, if you're careful enough to broach the subject in a delicate, non-threatening way. There's also the priestess. She seems to be in a hurry. If you want to ask her about the star ball, you'll have to capture her attention quickly before she disappears. If you're sufficiently charming, you could cast an appealing illusion in front of her to enchant her into talking to you. You could instead read her mind and then manipulate her into giving you the information you want, if you're clever enough to figure out a cunning way to use what you learn from her thoughts to persuade her to talk to you. There are many people in the square now, milling about the marketplace. If you choose to interact with either Daichi or the priestess, you are bound to lose the other in the crowd. What are you going to do? Shoot foxfire at Daichi? I want to hurt him. Shapeshift into a human and try to calmly discuss Daichi's feelings about foxes. Cast an illusion to charm the priestess into talking about the star ball. Read the priestess's thoughts and manipulate her into giving me information about the star ball. You rush ahead of the priestess as she runs toward a street branching off from the opposite side of the square. Standing beside the mouth of that street, you quickly weave an illusion across the priestess's path. While working on illusory magic, you feel as if you were soaking in a hot spring, the warmth of soothing water reaching all the way down through your fur to your skin, relaxing you. With the full power of your imagination, you paint what you think are pleasant, captivating images and feelings, intended for the senses of the priestess alone. You hope your illusion will charm her into stopping to talk to you. However, your illusion is so vapid that it fails to impress her. It lacks color and elegance. She passes through it without stopping and runs away. Feeling thirsty, you decide to search for water. Scampering a few streets away from the square, you arrive at a cultivated koi pond on the edge of town. Eagerly, you dip your head and lap at the water. You hear someone cackling. Ah, another silly little fox spirit. I bet you're one of those dreamers who come through Hoshimori looking for that magical item. What was it? The star ball. When you look up, you see an old man with a twinkle in his eye standing on the other side of the pond. What do you know about the star ball, you ask? Oh, I may have just found out something about it recently, he says, grinning at you. But why should I tell you, funny-looking little furball? What will you do to make him talk? Do something kind for him. Threaten to push him into the pond. I care about my happiness, not his. Tell a tale about the gods to explain why he should help me. discuss the tricks of worldly politicians to ease him into discussing the star ball. You study the man thoughtfully. He is leaning heavily on a worn wooden staff, and it looks too short for him. His back is painfully hunched as he stoops over the staff. You reach out with your magic, entreating the wood in the staff to stretch to a more comfortable length. The wood stretches, and the man is delighted to find that he can stand up straight again once the staff is longer. "It's a miracle," he cries. He looks at you, amazed. "Did you do that?" Your tails wag happily. "Yes. I'm glad I could help." He bows. "Thank you. I will be sure to tell others of your kindness, little fox. As a token of my appreciation, I'll tell you a secret I learned about that star ball of yours. For many years, I've seen little fox spirits like you come to Hoshimori, searching for the star ball. I never knew what to tell them about where to start looking for it. Honestly, I thought they were all crazy, or perhaps just a bit simple in the head, to be chasing a legend that sounded too good to be true." The man looks down at the pond. You do the same, your keen eyes tracking every tiny movement of the large, colorful koi as they swirl through the water like dreams. "But I'll tell you something, Two Tails. My grandson Yuki is a servant in the house of the Honorable Noboru, a well-respected nobleman here in Hoshimori who collects ancient artifacts that are rumored to have magical powers. Just a week ago, when my grandson was dusting in a storage room, he found something interesting." You tilt your head at the man, your ears skewing to the sides in curiosity. "What was it?" The man's brow furrows. It was a wooden tablet with calligraphy carved on it, written in the old style. The illustrations depicted a fox spirit holding a white orb in its mouth. My grandson couldn't decipher much of the script, so he traced the symbols as best as he could onto another sheet of paper in order to study them in more detail later. Your tails swish behind you restlessly. Has he deciphered the rest since then? The man shakes his head. Not entirely. But he decoded enough of it to realize that it's about the star ball. The man gives you a long look. I'm sure Noboru knows more about it. But he is seldom forthcoming with his secrets. You nod. I see. Leaning on his walking stick, the old man shuffles away. Good luck, fox spirit, he says over his shoulder, before he heads to town and leaves you alone by the pond. Standing beside the pond, you start to yawn. Being a fox, you are largely a crepuscular creature, more active at dawn and dusk than during the day. It's now early afternoon, and you feel ready to sleep. Your long journey and the day's events have worn you out. However, when you remember that you have magic now, you tingle with excitement, and suddenly your exhaustion is wiped out, leaving you awake and alert. Every sinew in your body burns like starlight, and your senses feel like they've sharpened to a razor's edge. You sniff the breeze, swiveling your muzzle left and right as you wonder what to do with the giddiness coursing through you. You've been waiting 100 years for today, your first full day as a fox spirit. Why waste time sleeping just yet? Roam the forest, practicing my empathy and shape-shifting skills. Head to Inari's shrine to learn about her divine arts. Find the seat of political power in Hoshimori and practice mind manipulation. Search for a field where I can practice foxfire in the open. You trot to a field on the edge of town. The rice stalks shine a brilliant green in the morning light. You sit at the top of the field, flicking your ears as you gaze into the distance at the mountains beyond the terraced crops that ripple like fur in the wind. The air currents carry stories to your twitching snout. Suddenly, your nose catches a faint human scent. Turning, you spot a figure standing on the far side of the field. Their features are hidden behind an easel upon which they appear to be painting. You've always thought of human creativity as a unique form of magic. What their species lacks in spellcasting skills they make up for with their art. The painter seems to be entirely absorbed in their work, lost in the flow of the process without any conscious effort on their part. There is something utterly natural and beautiful about the sight, like watching a hawk soar or a fox pounce. This person is doing what they were born to do. You find yourself strangely riveted. When the painter glances up from their easel at last, they notice you sitting on the opposite side of the field. The figure freezes, your motion-sensitive eyes detect the cessation of movement even from this far away. Their hand no longer strokes their brush across the paper screen on their easel, their head stays perfectly still. You can't see their expression, but you sense that the human is watching you. You intended to practice foxfire here, and now you appear to have an audience. How will you show off your creativity, from one artist to another? Can you impress this born painter with your own work of beauty? 3 possible foxfire spells come to mind. You could use jet propulsion beneath your paws to speed yourself up as you run if you are fast enough to keep up with the flames or bold enough to charge ahead on them. You could instead create concentric fire rings, a technique that requires either precision or the appearance of it via guile. Another option would be to make a mirage out of your flames, depicting a window into a fictional world. Forming a sufficiently enchanting image would take a good amount of charm, or, lacking that, an above-average ability to persevere in the face of difficulty. Creating something out of nothing requires tremendous determination, after all. Use jet propulsion while I run. Create concentric fire rings. Make a mirage depicting a fictional scene. Concentrating your magic, you rub your tail tips together like flint until you start to itch and sweat beneath your fur. Then sparks light up and fizzle between them, cooling into an orb of white-hot fire that crackles in the fork of air between your tails. Taking a deep breath, you hold your tails aloft and focus on the brand burning behind you, directing it toward the results you hope to achieve. You direct the flow of foxfire upward into the air, spreading it gradually into a large circle. You move onward from that circle to a smaller one that fits within it, then onto an even smaller circle. You hope to impress the painter with your ability to loop the different sized circles neatly within each other. Unfortunately, you aren't as precise or as clever as you thought. Your foxfire gets all tangled up, writhing through the sky like a heap of worms. And then you accidentally set the field on fire. A few stalks of rice glimmer like torches, crackling with sparks of your misdirected foxfire. On the other side of the field, the painter cries out, gathers their supplies under their arms, and runs, presumably heading to town to escape or to issue a warning. You yelp and twist your tails rapidly through the air, trying to beat back the fire, but that fans the flames higher rather than blowing them out. Finally, you kick dirt onto them with your paws, and this quenches their spread. You breathe a sigh of relief and sit heavily on the ground, your ears skewing in embarrassment. The painter is gone. You surely made a bad impression on them with your foible. As your exhaustion returns, you yawn and stretch, flexing your paw pads, tensing your legs, and extending your bushy tails to their maximum length. Your muscles tingle with fatigue, so you decide to find a place to rest. You lope deep into the forest on the edge of the village, comforted as the familiar scents of animals and trees enfold you. Finding a cozy hollow beneath the gnarled roots of an ancient fir, you curl up there and close your eyes, dreaming of another exciting, magical day tomorrow. You awake to your stomach rumbling. Groaning, you roll over and squeeze out from beneath the tree roots under which you were sleeping. You stretch at the base of the fir, sliding your forepaws forward across the ground while arching your back and hind quarters in the air. After being curled up in a narrow space for the past few hours, it feels good. Night is falling in the forest. Your eyes adjust easily to the gathering darkness. Your stomach pangs with hunger. You sniff the air, scenting other predators prowling the twilight in search of a meal. Your stomach growls again. You should search for a meal, too. You walk through the forest softly, inaudibly. You hold your head high, sniffing the wind, and your ears detect even the slightest rustling in the grass. Smelling and hearing the life all around you, you feel acutely aware of your solitude. The years have been long since your family died. Do you ever think of finding a mate to keep you company? I am interested in finding a male mate. I am interested in finding a female mate. I am interested in finding a mate of any gender. I have no interest in mating, only friendship. Regardless of what the future holds, tonight you walk alone. From a large meadow up ahead, you smell the warm, plant-like scent of a group of rabbits. You hear their incisors ripping and gnashing the grass, the gentle patter of their paws across the ground. You are downwind of them, so they cannot smell you. You grin and swish your tails. You are a fortunate fox. You fall into a practiced crouch, slinking toward the break in the trees. Still hidden in the tall grass at the edge of the meadow, you pause, scanning your potential prey. Your eyes lock onto the closest rabbit. He is standing with his back to you, nibbling, a good 5 feet from the others. Perfect. You use a technique that's worked for you many times in the past. I chase the rabbit until he tires. I tackle the rabbit with all my strength. I make the rabbit run, then race ahead of him and trip him. I herd the rabbit over a specific patch of ground where he'll surely stumble. Oh, you see a small, bare area farther toward the center of the meadow where the ground is uneven and rocky. The rough patch is less than a foot across, but you trust yourself to guide the rabbit to exactly the right spot. You bound toward the rabbit, the long, dewy grass brushing your sides and cooling your fur as you leap into the open. The rabbit lifts his head, and you see his nostrils quiver and his eyes roll with fear. He turns and flees. You pursue him into the meadow, your paws pounding across the damp grass. The meadow overflows with wild flowers, so the air grows thick with pollen as you plow through them. The pollen clings to your coat and tickles your snout as you race after your quarry. Your lungs burn, your tongue lolls, and the muscles in your forelegs coil and uncoil like springs with each stride, propelling you onward. You chase the rabbit directly to the stone-strewn spot. He trips on a small rock and crashes to the ground, where he lies, stunned. You stalk forward. Closer. Closer. Close enough to smell his breath. You smile triumphantly and open your jaws, ready to deliver the killing bite. A red-furred body knocks you to the side. You stagger, reeling, and regain your bearings just in time to see a crimson blur in the corner of your eye, streaking away with your rabbit in its teeth. It's another fox, a male, also called a dog fox, based on the scent. 2 of your siblings were dog foxes, 2 were vixens, and 2 did not self-identify as dog foxes or vixens. What is your gender identity? I am a vixen. I am a dog fox. I am a non-binary fox. The other rabbits scatter before you can give chase. The stranger took your quarry. How do you feel? Angry. That was my rabbit. Sympathetic. That fox was hungry, too. I'm glad he found a meal. Impressed. How did that fox sneak up on me? You feel more curious than upset. When you hunt, all your senses are keyed to the world around you. You notice even the tiniest smells, sounds, and sights in your surroundings. While you were in such a state, how did something as important as another fox escape your notice? You pace back and forth across the clearing, thinking. Did the fox roll in rabbit dung to disguise his scent? Did he make sure he was downwind of you when the breeze was at its strongest? Were you just so absorbed in stalking the rabbit that you weren't paying as much attention as usual? Suddenly, another idea bites you in the ear. It's so obvious that you can't help laughing. You never did get a good look at your fellow hunter, so you didn't see whether he had more than one tail. But it's likely that he was a fox spirit, not a mere fox. He probably used magic to deceive you, and the rabbits, too. You consider this epiphany. It hadn't occurred to you before to use magic while hunting. It would give you an unfair advantage over your prey, but have nature's bloody games ever been fair? You ponder new methods, both magical and non-magical, for deceiving other creatures. The possibilities tickle your fancy. You cross to the side of the meadow opposite where you entered. The cool grasses and wild flowers whisper across your coat, providing some relief to your aching muscles. Your tails whisk back and forth, releasing clouds of pollen in their wake. With every step, your body heaves with effort. The leathery pads of your paws feel cracked and sore as you trudge across the chilly ground. Your tongue lolls from the corner of your mouth while you pant to cool down. The air is cooler now, but you're still sweating beneath your fur, your reflexes struggling to calm down after your exertion earlier. Overhead, the sky has deepened to black, and stars are winking into view. You pay them little mind, more focused on the gnawing pain in your abdomen as you stagger back under the trees. In the shadow of the canopy, your body temperature lowers considerably. Your eyes adjust quickly to the lower level of light, picking out the trunks of firs, hemlocks, and spruces as you weave through them, forging a path through tangled herbs and ferns. You can't smell the dog fox who stole your food. However, as you wander deeper into the darkness, you smell a different fox, a vixen. Soon enough, she appears. You are envious to see and smell that her belly is bulging with food. Hello, you call after her as she waddles past you. Where did you eat tonight? The vixen glances over her shoulder at you. There's a farm girl living on the farm over there. She jerks her head to the east, toward town. When you sniff the air, you smell a rice field less than a mile in that direction. Very nice, that farm girl, the vixen continues. Has the strangest fascination with foxes. Puts out scraps for us every night. Can you believe it? She giggles, then burps. You gape at her. Really? Is it safe? Her tail wags lazily. Oh, yes. I've been going there for years now. Never had a problem. Her voice falls to a whisper. Between you and me, though, I don't think the farmer knows about it. Best to keep it that way. You nod. Go toward the rice field from the south side, facing the back of the house, advises the fox as she scuttles off. The farm girl will be waiting out there, on the path that borders the field. Before you can say another word, the vixen has melted into the trees. You sniff again, latching onto the heady smell of rice, and lope to the east. You scamper out of the trees at the edge of the forest, entering a cultivated clearing. The coarse grass feels scratchy against the pads of your paws. The rice paddy looms to your left. Your ears swivel, listening for unusual sounds. As your whiskers quiver in the breeze, combing it for scents, a tantalizing fragrance greets your nose: deep-fried tofu. Your muzzle drips with drool. You sniff again, peering toward the nearest edge of the rice field, where the smell originates. A lantern sits on the dirt path that borders the rice paddy, flickering faintly. You see a silhouette framed in its light. You sniff once more. It's a human. Her natural scent is masked by a pleasant, flowery aroma, as well as a chemical smell: paint. According to the vixen who ate here earlier, this farm girl feels kindly toward foxes. But you've had bad experiences on farms before. How do you want to proceed? Warily. This may be a trap. Cutely. I have to act adorable so the human will like me. Bravely, trusting my own daring to see me through. You have enough experience with humans and other creatures to know that there is no such thing as a free meal. Even though this farm girl seems to be giving handouts to foxes, she is probably getting something out of it in return. Why else would she sacrifice her own food to wild animals? There has to be more going on here than the vixen you met understands. Moving in the shadows, you slip into the rice paddy, circling around so that you are approaching the human from behind. You move soundlessly but swiftly, flowing through the rice plants as fluidly as water. You hope to get your food and get out before the human even notices you. You step out of the rice paddy and onto the path, careful to stay out of the circle of light made by the lantern. Standing in the darkness on its edge, you pause and assess the situation. The tofu scraps are piled on the ground in front of the human, on the far side of the circle of light. Between you and the scraps is the human, whose back is turned to you. The farm girl is beautiful by human standards. She looks to be in her early 20s, with a willowy frame and elegant features that make her look like someone out of a painting. She wears an indigo cotton kimono, plain and coarse, but the lack of pretension in her dress somehow makes her seem that much lovelier. Her long hair has been braided behind her back to keep it out of her eyes while she paints. With a jolt of shock, you recognize the young painter. You saw her in the field where you were practicing your foxfire earlier today. You wonder if the human would recognize you too if given the chance. Between the human and the scraps is an easel, which the human seems to be studying. You crane your neck, but you're too short to get a good look at the scroll on the easel. But the smell of paint is strong, and so is the smell of the tofu. It smells so delicious that it makes you want to scream. You take a deep breath. You must focus. Get the food and get out. That's the plan. Suddenly, the human lifts her head. Hello, she calls. Is someone there? You stop dead. You've been proceeding as cautiously as a fox can, but the human still has grown uneasy. You wait until she looks down at the painting again before creeping toward the tofu scraps. Before you reach them, your stomach betrays you. It emits a painful, ear-splitting whine. The human jumps, scattering paint brushes on the ground. You freeze. The human lifts her lantern and whirls toward you. Ah, it's a fox, the human says, relief and delight clear in her voice and on her face. She bends to gather the dropped paint brushes. After putting the paint brushes back into the vase that was holding them, the human takes a closer look at you. Her eyes widen. A fox spirit, the human says. How wonderful. You observe that, despite her excited tone, she keeps her voice at a low volume, not quite a whisper, but a hushed undertone. As she studies you further, the human's brow suddenly furrows in worry. Wait a minute. Aren't you that fox spirit who set our neighbor's field on fire earlier today? Your ears flatten, your tails drooping and your head hanging in shame. It was an accident, you whimper. The painter sighs. I'm relieved that it wasn't on purpose. But you should really be more careful. Our friends lost part of their crop due to your carelessness. You whine softly. I'm sorry to hear that. I've only ever had regular foxes come to visit me, the farm girl continues. It's nice to meet a vulpine who can talk. The human gives you a polite bow. My name is Ren. What's yours? Kitsun. Kuzunoha. Fukuman. Ochizuki. Akomashi. Myobu. Riko. None of these. My name is Silver, you tell Ren. Nice to meet you, Silver, Ren gushes. You dash to the aka pile of deep-fried tofu and scarf down a bite. You sigh contentedly. It is delicious. You gobble down even more, relishing its crinkly texture on your tongue. You force yourself to stop short of eating the whole pile. You don't want to get bloated like the vixen. I've always wondered what it would be like to be a fox or a fox spirit, Ren sighs. Can you tell me about it? You cock your head at Ren, licking the last crumbs of tofu from your lips. About what, exactly? Everything. Ren says. I love foxes. They're my favorite animals. Carefully, Ren lifts the scroll off the easel, lowering it to your level so you can see it. You gasp. It's a painting of the vixen you saw earlier. It depicts her before she ate her meal, when she was in top form, sleek and alert. It's a stunning portrait. Every minute detail of the vixen's appearance, from her vibrant amber eyes to the frosted tip of her tail, is shown. Wren captured all of it perfectly. The painting is meticulously accurate, yet it also seems to have a life of its own. Do you like it? Wren asks. I'm worried that it's not very good. She seems eager to hear your opinion. You could gush over Wren's painting, if you have a kind enough heart that Wren will be able to tell that you're being sincere. Or, if you are worldly wise, you could discuss Wren's technique in the context of other paintings you've seen. That might impress her. Conversely, if you are spiritually inclined, you could turn this into an inspiring moral lesson. What will you do? Be kind and supportive. Demonstrate my cultural awareness. Inspire Wren with a spiritual speech. Are you kidding? You exclaim. It's beautiful. Wren beams. You really think so? Oh, I'm so glad you like it. Wren puts the painting back on the easel. Anyway, like I was saying, I love foxes. If you have the time, I would like to chat with you about your life. Wren's face lights up. Actually, how about you pose for me first? I'll make some quick sketches. You could be my next subject. Wren moves the painting of the vixen to one side of the easel, making space for a smaller, blank screen. You wonder how to strike a pose that might impress Wren. Balance a paintbrush on the tip of my nose while standing on two legs. Use a deceptive illusion to make myself look more impressive. Strike a proud, boastful pose. You stand tall with your chest puffed out, your ears perked, and your tails held high. Yes, look at me, you croon, preening your gray fur. I'm gorgeous. Wren raises an eyebrow. Her skeptical expression deflates you, and you flatten your ears. I'm sorry, you mumble, looking down at your forepaws and scuffing the dirt. I don't want to seem self-absorbed. Maybe you should paint something else. Wren frowns. But I want to paint you. You shake your head. I don't have the strongest ego. So this kind of attention makes me uncomfortable. You sweat beneath your fur, ashamed. I'm sorry, Wren. The young painter sighs. Well, fine. If you insist. But by putting yourself down like this, you're doing a disservice to me too. Reluctantly, she puts away her paint brushes. Anyway, Silver, could you tell me a little about yourself? Wren asks. What's it like to be a fox spirit? You clear your throat, your ears flicking. Well, I had my 100th birthday and became a fox spirit only last night. So I just discovered magic yesterday. I lived in the hills to the west all my life, but I've moved to Hoshimori for the time being. And it's just you. You're all alone. Yes. Your fur puffs out in sudden apprehension. You glance past Wren. On the other side of the rice field, there's a little wooden shed. Past the shed, there's a house. The shed seems to block the view of this part of the field from the house. A nagging uncertainty tugs at you, as if a kit is pulling at your tails, or your waking mind is struggling to remember a dream. Why do you love foxes so much? you ask Wren. Wren stares at you for a long moment, her brow furrowed. Then Wren looks toward the edge of the forest and sighs. They are free, says Wren. And so beautiful. Wren shakes her head, scuffing the dirt of the path underfoot. But father doesn't like them. He doesn't want them anywhere near our farm. Your unease grows. You look back toward the house and sniff the air. 1,000 familiar odors rush to your nose. Your heart seizes, as if a wolf has bitten through your chest. You've been here before. This is Daichi's farm. The man who killed your family is Wren's father. You back away from Wren, your fur standing on end. I'm sorry. I can't be here. Wren's eyes brim with tears. Why? We only just met. Please stay a little while. I get so lonely out here. You stare up at Wren, wild-eyed and hyperventilating. What emotion is overwhelming you? Fear for my life. Rage over what Daichi did to my family. Sorrow that my loved ones are no longer with me. A whimper forms in the back of your throat as the tips of your tails tuck between your legs. Tears burn in your eyes. You miss your family more than words can say. You hang your head, feeling guilty that you survived and they did not. If you stay here much longer, you worry that you will crumple to the ground in a crying, furry heap and be unable to get back up. You have to get out of here. But Wren looks so sad. And it was so kind of her to feed you such a splendid meal. Thank Wren for the food and reassure her that you'll meet again. Criticize Wren's father's treatment of foxes. Lie about why you have to leave. Just run. There's no time to waste. You nod politely at Wren. Thank you very much for those scrumptious tofu scraps. I'm sorry I can't stay to talk tonight, but I will not forget your generosity. I assure you that I will find a way to speak to you again. Wren smiles, brushing away her tears on her sleeve. I'm glad you liked the tofu. I do hope we'll get to talk more another time. I hope so, too, you reply. It's been a pleasure. Wren, hollers a voice from the direction of the house. You turn to look, and your stomach churns. It's Daichi, hurtling toward you and Wren like wildfire. He's already halfway across the field. Wren turns to Daichi. Father! Get away from there! Daichi yells. Get away from that monster! Your heart pounds in your chest like a woodpecker hammering a tree. Instinctively, you crouch low to the ground, flattening your ears and squeezing your eyes shut. A heavy metal object slams you from above. Your spine and shoulder blades sear with pain. You start to crawl away, then yelp as a heavy calloused foot stomps down on your tails. You squirm, attempting to break free, but the pressure from the farmer's foot pins you firmly to the ground. You hear Wren's voice. Father, don't. You'll hurt him. Fox spirits don't have feelings, Daichi says sternly. His straw sandal grinds against the base of your spine. You struggle against the weight of his foot. Please, you gasp. Let me go. Daichi squints at you, holding his hoe aloft like a sword. Wait a minute. I recognize you. You tremble as he looms over you. Daichi stares into your eyes for a long moment. Then he inhales sharply. Ah. You're the fox from that large group 20 years ago. The one that got away. He scowls. That won't happen again. You hear Ren sobbing nearby. Please, father. Silver didn't hurt me. I just gave him some scraps from our dinner, and we talked. What? Roars Daichi, whirling on Ren. His hoe clatters to the ground. With his foot no longer pressed against your tails, you manage to escape, staggering out of Daichi's reach. All your muscles sear with pain. You look from Daichi to Ren, hardly daring to breathe. I've warned you about foxes, Ren, hisses Daichi. Time and time again. Why don't you listen? Ren glares at Daichi. Because you never listen. I've told you, foxes are beautiful to me. I want to paint them. But you don't care what I want. Daichi looks like he's been struck. I care about keeping you safe, he says, softly. About. His voice cracks, about keeping you alive. There's a moment of ominous silence. You shift your weight nervously, wondering what to do. You could try to start changing Daichi's mind about foxes, or you could threaten or attack him. Either of those courses of action would be difficult. Or you could just escape now, while you have the chance. That would be much easier and simpler. However, you won't be able to work toward any goals surrounding Daichi if you opt out of this harrowing interaction by running away. Talk to Daichi. If I'm brave, I could challenge his misconceptions about foxes. Deceive Daichi into approaching me and then attack him. Rely on my charm to win him over. Lick his hand and nuzzle him. Frighten Daichi with an illusion, using caution so he doesn't realize it's unreal. Act in the interest of caution and self-preservation and run away fast. I cared about keeping my family alive, too, you say. You look up into Daichi's eyes. But you killed them. Daichi glares at you. How did you get free, Wraith? I am not a wraith. You stand between him and the hoe, keeping your eyes steadily on his. I am just a creature who wants to live my life in peace. Daichi laughs hoarsely. I can't believe this. You refuse to back down. My family and I were not trying to steal from you or hurt you when we traveled across your land. We were headed toward Hoshimori on an errand of our own. But you didn't consider our side of the story. You just attacked us. Why? Daichi glances toward Ren. Ren frowns at him, confused. Daichi is silent for a long while. Foxes are unwelcome on farms, Daichi says at last. As predators, they pose a risk to our chickens. They bite, and they carry diseases. That can't be the real reason, father, says Ren. Daichi glowers at Ren. Of course it is. It's reason enough to keep your distance. And to keep them off our land. Ren shakes her head. No, I can hear it in your voice when you talk about foxes. Your animosity runs deeper than mere annoyance about wild animals that might disturb our chickens. It's hate. Pure, unbridled hate. Ren sighs. I wish you would tell me the truth about why you despise them. Daichi's face falls. He stares at the ground, unable to meet Ren's eyes. How many fox spirits have you talked to, Daichi, you ask? Other than me. Just one, says Daichi. Is that a tear on his cheek? I see. Well, perhaps you shouldn't base your opinion of an entire species on a single specimen. If I based my opinion of all humans entirely on my first encounter with you, believe me, it would not be a flattering one. You nod at Ren. Your daughter is a different story. Ren smiles. Daichi's face flushes with anger. You don't understand, he says to you. You could never understand what I've been through. Darting past you, he snatches up the hoe, pointing it at you. Get out of here. And don't come back. I will leave, you say. But I hope you will think about what I said. You feel confident that he will. You run stiffly through the forest, heading back toward the village. You want to put as much distance between yourself and Daichi's farm as possible while keeping away from any other farms if you can. However, your body is still aching from the farmer's attack, which slows your pace considerably. It takes a few hours of putting your body through its paces among the trees for your legs and tails to feel limber again. By this time, the sky is lightening, and the cool night air is beginning to warm. Warblers and sparrows twitter their love songs in the branches overhead. The brush rustles as various mammals seek the shelter of their burrows. The exciting musk of nighttime prowls starts to dissipate. You feel the pleasant weight of the tofu scraps in your belly, offset by the dull pain in your shoulders and back from Daichi's blow with the bladed hoe. How do you feel now about your close encounter at the farm? Furious. I hate that farmer and his daughter. Confused. I like Ren, but I'm not sure about Daichi. Sad. I wonder what Daichi suffered that made him hate foxes so much. Relieved. I'm glad I got a good meal and escaped with my life. You feel certain that Ren has your best interests at heart. Clearly, Ren loves foxes and wants to help them. She was generous enough to feed you part of her own supper. Ren was also upset when Daichi attacked you with the hoe. You still can't find it in your heart to trust Daichi after what he did to your family. But with Ren's aid and a careful approach, maybe you could help Daichi to change. As you approach the houses of Hoshimori, the sun begins to rise. A crisp breeze teases your fur and tickles your nose. You sigh. Though your instincts urge you to sleep again until dusk, you know that the only way you will be able to fully participate in life in Hoshimori is by altering your habits and staying awake during the day. Wondering what this new day will bring, You head into the village. You pad down a street at the edge of Hoshimori, passing little wooden houses with peaked roofs on either side. Complicated feelings about your accidental return to Daiichi's farm a few hours ago still roll through your gut. The pavement feels slick beneath your paws. The freshness of dawn is in the air, but clouds are starting to roll in, promising rain. Petals from the cherry trees lining the boulevard waft on the breeze, which carries scents from faraway places visited by travelers passing through the village. A few families are picnicking on blankets in the grass, enjoying the blossoms overhead while sharing sushi and rice wine. At one small gathering, a woman reads poetry aloud as her children frolic under the trees, laughing as they race to catch the falling petals. But before long, the boom of taiko drums deep in the heart of the village catches the attention of the revelers. Gradually, they pack up their parties, heading toward the sound. Your ears perk curiously, and you scamper in that direction too. The streets are soon crowded with bustling foot traffic and carts drawn by animals. Is there another market today? Curious, you follow the crowd, dodging the feet of humans and the hooves of oxen and horses. Up ahead, this street seems to intersect with a wider street. But you can't see clearly because of all the people around you. Why do humans have to be so tall? You huff in frustration before figuring out a solution. I get to the top of an ox cart with a powerful leap. I distract the people around me with a well-aimed fireball. I dash ahead of the thick of the crowd. I press onward at a steady pace until I reach the next street. It requires patience to steadily make your way through the crowd, but you have that in ample amounts. You don't need to waste your energy trying to get ahead of everyone else. Instead you focus on pushing onward at a measured pace, one step at a time. You have the stamina to make it to your destination without resorting to cheap tricks. Eventually, you reach the next street. There you stop and look ahead. A river cuts across the wider street diagonally. An ornate red bridge arcs above the river, joining one side of the street to the other. A procession of some sort is marching across the bridge. You glimpse imperial soldiers in plated armor, nobles carried on palanquins, musicians playing various instruments, and colorful paper floats lifted on poles by people in black costumes, which seem to represent magical creatures like dragons and Komainu. Humans in red and white and fox spirits wearing red bibs flank the procession on both sides, waving pink streamers and chanting softly. They are acolytes of Inari, and they pay the goddess homage with their presence and prayers, thanking her for another spring of prosperous crops and beautiful blossoms in Hoshimori. Beneath the festive trappings and lively music, the mood of the procession seems somewhat somber. Though the drummers pound out a boisterous beat, you smell confusion, anger, and fear wafting up from the spectating crowd. You circle around to follow the parade across the bridge and through the streets, until it empties out into the square near the center of the village. A temporary stage has been erected in the square. The procession flows out to the sides of the square. Most of the marchers come to a stop at its edges, still marching or dancing in place and playing their music. They are careful not to block the streets through which the rest of the crowd is streaming into the square. The woman who was walking at the head of the parade makes her way up the steps of the stage. She wears imperial armor and carries herself with a regal, confident bearing. An elegant curved sword is strapped across her back. Her long black hair is constrained in a helmet cushioning top knot. When the woman arrives at the center of the stage, she turns to face the crowd. "Good morning, citizens of Hoshimori," she says, in a voice that rings through the air. "Thank you for gathering here today. I am sorry to disrupt this year's Cherry Blossom Festival with unpleasant news. But as the head of our village, it is my solemn duty to address a problem that has cast a shadow over our peaceful community." She clears her throat. "The fox spirit problem." The crowd erupts in whispers, murmurs, and mutters. The village head silences them all with a wave of her hand. As you all are well aware, a group of ancient fox spirits known only as the Wild Masters have been wreaking havoc on our village. After centuries of living peacefully in the depths of the forest, barely ever even glimpsed by humans, the Wild Masters have suddenly started using their magic to cause problems on the edges of Hoshimori, burning crops, flooding houses, and even possessing some of our beloved citizens, causing them to commit wicked acts. Your tails twitch behind you. Your parents told you stories about the Wild Masters. Apparently, according to your parents, these four powerful fox spirits earned that title because they are well-respected masters of magic, lauded as wise teachers by all of the fox spirit community. Your parents never told you anything about the Wild Masters acting hostile toward humans, however. Judging from the words of the head of the village, this is a relatively new development. What's your opinion about what she is saying? It's horrible that the Wild Masters are hurting people. They must be stopped. The Wild Masters' behavior must have an understandable earthly cause. Maybe they were provoked. She's probably lying about what the Wild Masters are doing to achieve an end. I will reserve my judgment until I see what's been going on for myself. You prefer to watch and wait. You don't want to jump to conclusions about a situation you know nothing about. I am committed to keeping all of you safe, continues the woman. As liaison between our community and our honorable emperor, Yoshifuji, it is my duty to contain this threat before it affects the rest of the empire. She flourishes with a gauntlet hand. We must eliminate the Wild Masters before they do us lasting harm. To this end, I propose that we remove any unfamiliar fox spirits that are sighted in Hoshimori. She taps the hilt of the sword on her back. By force, if necessary. You shift uncomfortably, seated on the cobbles of the square. The humans nearest to you turn and stare down at you. How do you react? Stare right back at them. Hide. Wag my tails and show that I'm friendly. Disguise myself with magic. You wave your tails back and forth through the air behind you and smile reassuringly at the people who are staring at you. You whine softly in the back of your throat, skew your ears to the sides in a relaxed expression, hunch your body in an unthreatening, submissive pose, and thump your tails against the cobbles in a comforting rhythm. You let your tongue loll from your mouth like a dog's. You're sure you must look goofy during this exaggerated posturing, but it works. The humans' furrowed brows smooth over, and they even smile a little. They turn back toward their leader, who is still standing on the stage. A timid voice pipes up from the crowd. "Hi Zako, with all due respect, can you please, well, reconsider?" The crowd and Hi Zako, the armored woman, turn toward the voice. Weaving through the crowd, you locate the speaker, a white fox spirit with 3 tails. The fox is flanked by 2 priestesses in the red and white outfits of Inari's acolytes. The crowd murmurs. One of the priestesses holds up a hand, addressing the crowd. "You know that Kasura has only ever been your kind and faithful servant," the priestess says, in a soft but clear voice. "Please, let them speak." The crowd falls silent. Kasura steps forward, approaching the stage. The white fox has a silvery sheen to the tips of their fur when they move, like rippling moonlight. Sitting at the foot of the stage, Kasura looks up at Hi Zako, the leader of the village. The fox spirit coughs into their tails, clearing their throat. "Hi Zako, I understand that you fear the wild masters," Kasura begins. Hi Zako narrows her eyes. "I fear no one." Kasura stands and shrinks back a little, lashing their tails, shifting their weight between their forepaws, fidgeting. Still they face the stage. "Well, I understand that you want to address the bad things the wild masters are doing, but it doesn't seem right to punish all fox spirits in the Hoshimori area for the wicked deeds of these few. Many of us, like myself, are servants of Inari and do good works in our community." Hi Zako nods respectfully. "I am aware of your service to our village, Kasura, and the service of the other fox spirits who are divine messengers. I am grateful for the kind and generous deeds you all perform in the name of our goddess. I do not intend to punish fox spirits we know and trust with this policy. Only fox spirits who are unknown to us and may be in league with the wild masters will be affected." Kasura's ears flick back, and they look to the side, no longer able to meet Hi Zako's unyielding gaze. "With all due respect, great Hi Zako, I still don't feel right about this plan. It treats all fox spirits who are new to us as guilty until they are proven innocent." Hi Zako purses her lips thoughtfully. "That is a valid point. We could offer some new fox spirits the opportunity to stay, provided that they swear loyalty to the Empire and are closely monitored by my soldiers. Perhaps they could even prove useful to us in this conflict. The wild masters have magic, and we do not. But if we employ other fox spirits to help us destroy them, "No," cries Kasura, their gentle voice suddenly rising, surprisingly, to a shout. They look directly up into Hi Zako's eyes, pleading. What the Wild Masters have been doing is wrong. I believe we should stop them just as much as you do. But violent solutions are never the answer. They can only lead to more violence. We must stop the Wild Masters from hurting anyone else, yes, but without the use of force. We don't even know their side of the story yet. Maybe their side of the story. Hisako says grimly. I appreciate your good heart, Kasura. I know you always want to see the best in others. I want peace just as much as you do. I have lived through enough battles to know that war is not as pretty as the ballads make it seem. But I'm afraid that sometimes violent tactics are necessary to maintain the peace and order we cherish. The possible consequences of violence should be taken seriously, and it should only be used as a last resort. Nonetheless, I feel that it is justified in this case. We must defend our homes and families from harm. Hisako looks out into the crowd from the stage, and her eyes find yours. You there? Fox Spirit. What is your name? Silver, you reply. Where do you stand, Silver? Asks Hisako. Are you on our side? Her gaze is piercing, and you know that if you lie, even to yourself, she will see right through you. I'll help you destroy these rogues if the Empire gives me something in return. Surely there's a peaceful solution that will work for both sides. I will fight you to defend my fellow fox spirits, the Wild Masters. Chase my tails cutely to lighten the mood. I want to calm everyone down. Hisako strokes her chin thoughtfully. Kasura nods enthusiastically, trotting over to stand beside you. I like helping others, you continue. And I don't want to see humans or fox spirits getting hurt. I think you and the Wild Masters can reach an agreement about how to resolve this conflict peacefully. Your tails wag a little behind you. Kasura smiles admiringly at you. Interesting, Fox Spirit, Hisako says. I can see from your posture and hear in your voice that you mean what you say. Perhaps peaceful negotiations are still worth considering. She turns to address the crowd. It would appear that there are new fox spirits in our midst who are gentle and do not wish us harm, Hisako says. And the Wild Masters, though their recent deeds are deplorable, have lived beside us peacefully until now. They may have legitimate grievances that provoked them into lashing out against us. Perhaps non-violent negotiations are still within the realm of possibility. The crowd murmurs in response to Hisako's declaration. Hisako lifts a hand, and they fall silent. My advisors and I will give this new development careful consideration, Hisako continues. Over the next few days, we will consult further with our Honorable Emperor and all of you to determine the best course of action. Thank you all for your courage, your patience, and your faith in my leadership as we steer Hoshimori through this difficult time. Hisako bows her head and steps down from the stage. The crowd mumbles restlessly as she cuts through the square like a blade, swift and silent, unaccompanied by the fanfare from earlier. Curious, you scamper through the legs of the crowd, hurrying after Hisako. But before you can reach her, you bump into one of her assistants instead. Is there a message you want me to convey to our village chief, Fox Spirit? Hisako's aide asks, kneeling to meet your eyes. You ponder how you might foster the village chief's favor. However you feel right now about the apparent conflict between the Wild Masters and the people of Hoshimori, Hisako's influence may be useful to have on your side one day. Tell her I send her my courage for the trials ahead. Tell her I will pray to the ten-tailed vixen on her behalf. Tell her to remember to enjoy the fineries of life during this difficult time. The aide studies your flattened ears and nervous manner and frowns. I will tell her, but I will add that your message seemed insincere to me. Before you can reply, the aide bustles off. After Hisako and her two aides leave, about a quarter of the crowd shuffles out of the square. Others linger and gossip among themselves. No one else takes the stage. The public meeting appears to be over. Catching a whiff of an unexpected, musky odor, you turn, scanning the edge of the crowd. You thought you smelled a fox somewhere in that direction. But you don't see one. Perhaps it disappeared already. Your eyes fall instead on a man. He is tall and dressed in fine silks, and he smells of expensive perfume. An entourage of servants gathers around him. He holds a paper scroll with an illustration of a fox spirit on it, crossed out with paint as red as blood. The man has lifted the scroll so that the picture can be seen above the heads of the crowd. When his eyes meet yours from the other side of the square, you shiver as if a cold wind just blew through your fur. The look on his face is both refined and ruthless, an expression of lofty disdain. Still curious about the fox smell, you head closer. You overhear one of the servants talking to the noble. "Master Noboru, to whom should I give these invitations?" the servant asks. Noboru, the noble, waves a hand dismissively. "Our usual associates. Only the most cultured aristocrats of Hoshimori must be allowed to attend this party." Your heart catches in your throat. Noboru. He is the same noble the old man mentioned to you yesterday. The one who has a tablet that contains information about the Star Ball. If you want to find out more about the Star Ball, you should definitely find a way into Noboru's party. The foxy scent lingers in this corner of the square. You look around but still don't see the fox who left it behind. You watch the servant take a silk pouch filled with party invitations from Noboru. Noboru's anti-fox poster and his proximity to the foxy scent trouble you. There's something strange going on, and Noboru seems to be at the heart of it. Getting into his party might provide you with clues. Your thoughts wander to something you'd like to do at this event. What are you imagining? Using my cleverness and guile to gather information about the Star Ball. Winning the favor of some rich nobles. Meeting people and trying something new. Studying the social scene in Hoshimori in order to tread more carefully here. Enlightening Hoshimori's nobles about spiritual matters. As a fox, you've enjoyed frolicking spontaneously across open meadows, examining unfamiliar scents, and exploring new territory. Novelty intrigues you. Noboru's party sounds like a great opportunity to get outside your comfort zone and do things you haven't done before. You daydream about meeting people, experiencing human culture firsthand, and becoming the life of the party. Noboru's servant heads off into the crowd with the bag of invitations. You want to obtain an invitation of your own. Perhaps in the process, you'll learn more about Noboru too. Assume the appearance of an adult human and tell the servant an elaborate lie. Masquerade as a human child and use my friendly appeal to break the ice. Eavesdrop on the servant to learn about Noboru and then sneakily steal an invitation. March right up to the servant, grab an invitation, and ask directly for information. As a fox, you've enjoyed frolicking spontaneously across open meadows, examining unfamiliar scents, and exploring new territory. Novelty intrigues you. Noboru's party sounds like a great opportunity to get outside your comfort zone and do things you haven't done before. You daydream about meeting people, experiencing human culture firsthand, and becoming the life of the party. Noboru's servant heads off into the crowd with the bag of invitations. I don't have to tell you obtain an invitation. The servant clenches his fists. The servant clenches his fists. I don't have to tell you anything, thief. You tremble so hard at the anger in his voice that you drop the invitation. He snatches it back up and puts it in his bag. I'm sorry, you say. I really am. The servant huffs. I will report you. Your ears flatten and your tails droop as you slink away. Alas! You will have to find another way into Noboru's house on the night of the party. As you pad out of the square in your usual form, your vulpine tail swinging behind you, and turn onto a quieter street, you hear human footsteps following yours. Your ears perk, and you freeze. When the wind shifts, you know who's behind you. You turn toward the farmer's daughter, your gray fur puffed out in surprise. Ren. The young human blushes. Hello, Silver. Frantically, you swivel your muzzle back and forth, sniffing the air as your gaze darts all around. Ren smiles reassuringly. Don't worry. Father's back at home. Working. There's an edge of bitterness to her tone. After last night, he was pretty mad at me. He didn't want me to come to town for the start of the festival. But I'm not a child. She rolls her eyes, which he often forgets. So here I am. Your ears flatten. I'm sorry he's upset with you. Ren shrugs. He would have found out what I was doing sooner or later. But I'm glad I got to meet you before he forbade me from putting scraps out anymore. She grins, but then her face falls, and she sighs. It's pretty troubling, isn't it? What Hisako said. Her brow furrows. I heard rumors about a few incidents with the Wild Masters recently, but I chalked them up to prejudice and superstition. But I guess it's all true, and it's gotten pretty serious. Ren kneels to your eye level, her eyes shining wetly. They possessed people's minds and made them attack each other, Silver, she whispers. Burned the homes and crops of villagers with foxfire. Devoured livestock and smeared the blood on farmers' doorsteps. Ren shudders. That's not playful mischief. It's a threat, one so frightening that Hisako had to interrupt the Cherry Blossom Festival to address it. You frown, your tail's drooping. That sounds serious indeed. Ren takes a deep breath to steady herself, gazing into your eyes. All this time, I've thought my father's hatred for foxes was irrational. But now, forgive me, I'm starting to wonder if he has a point. You stare into Ren's eyes, wondering how you might comfort her. Give Ren a strong fox spirit hug. Talk fast to distract Ren from her worries. Manipulate Ren's mind with magic, convincing her that everything is fine. I don't want to comfort Ren. Ren should fear us. You study Ren. Can I give you a hug, you ask. Ren looks at you for a moment in surprise, then nods. Very well. Though I'm not sure how you'd do that. You beam at her, wagging your tails. Just watch me. Balancing on your hind legs, you fall forward, wrapping your forepaws and tails around Ren's waist and squeezing with all your might. You've heard that humans find tight hugs comforting. But you're not strong enough to make Ren feel protected. She squirms easily out of your grip. You're trying to distract me, aren't you, Silver? She frowns and stands up, dusting herself off. It won't work. I'm troubled by what's happened, and you can't make me forget it. You whimper, your tail's drooping. I just wanted to help. Ren shakes her head. You could help if you gave me some answers. But I don't believe you can. Ren sighs. Goodbye, Silver. Your ears flatten as you watch her disappear down the street. Wandering onward through the village, you spot Noboru slinking off down a side street. Apparently he's too important to distribute all those invitations himself. He's left that menial job to his servants while he attends to other matters. He has a peculiar air about him, brisk and poised but also slightly furtive. Every few minutes, he stops and scours the street around him with his piercing gaze. Then he continues on his way, resuming his careless aristocratic swagger. You want to follow Noboru. But you don't want to look like a fox spirit while doing it, considering the anti-Vulpine banner the noble was waving earlier. So you duck behind some crates in an alley and shapeshift into your human form. Your grey fur becomes a fuzzy grey robe that conceals your body. Humans aren't as comfortable with nakedness as foxes are. Thus disguised, you slip after Noboru, watching as he enters a seedy-looking bar. Since you don't want it to be apparent that you were following him, you wait a few minutes before ducking through the door yourself. The chaos within overwhelms even your dimmed human senses. Hooting, pushing, shoving, laughing, jostling, elbowing, swaggering, staggering, stumbling, slurring, sloshing, clinking, swerving, swaying, eating, dancing, boasting, and singing. Mostly drinking. Lots and lots of drinking. You wrinkle your human nose, wondering why anyone would be partying indoors in this dim and dirty room when there's a whole beautiful festival of picnics and poetry readings happening outside beneath the cherry blossom trees. You can only assume that the humans in this place don't want their behavior observed in the light. You spot Noboru sitting cross-legged on a tatami mat beside a low table in the corner, downing a seemingly bottomless cup of rice wine. It's a bit shocking to see his regal, silky aspect in the midst of this boisterous peasant crowd. The peasants seem surprised to see him too. But despite their incivility and utter lack of decorum among themselves, they make a persistent effort to ignore the noble's presence, perhaps to avoid some feared retribution. Their gazes slide away from him as if floating on ice, allowing him a modicum of privacy despite the thickly occupied space. You walk a little closer to the noble, your vulpine instincts helping you weave through bustling servers and belligerent patrons. There's many a slip twixt a cup and a lip. You narrowly avoid being caught in the middle of a tripping event that ends in a shattered glass and a loud, drunken man refusing to be held accountable. As you reach Noboru's table, you stand there for a moment, wondering how to ingratiate yourself into his good graces. Offer to refill his glass for him. Strike up a conversation about his clothes. Best him in a drinking match. You cough to clear your throat. Excuse me, most honorable Noboru. If you are willing, I wish to challenge you to a drinking match. I believe I have the stomach to outlast you, if you'll only allow me the opportunity to prove it. Noboru shrugs, his only acknowledgement of your challenge. You kneel beside him on the tatami mat and wave down a server, who brings a glass of rice wine for you. I've had 3 already, Noboru mutters without looking at you. If you want to best me, peasant, you need to drink 4. You sniff your cup tentatively. You've never tasted alcohol before, and this rice wine smells strong. You hope you have enough stamina to last 4 rounds. Taking a deep breath, you suck down your first big swig. You swiftly drain the glass, stone-faced and resigned, determined to not even acknowledge the bitter flavor with a pucker of your lips or a twinge of your cheek. Wiping your mouth with the back of your hand, you call the server to ask for a refill. You quickly empty 3 more glasses, never even breaking a sweat. Noboru raises an eyebrow. You hold your drink well for a peasant, he observes. Your insides are burning and your muscles feel wobbly, your tongue vibrating in your mouth like a terrified snake, but you set your jaw and nod stoically, your body taking the heat like a champion. Noboru sighs heavily into his glass, apparently inebriated enough to tolerate your company. His gaze sweeps the room like a chilly wind. Idiots, he scoffs. The lot of them. A bunch of childish louts, these humans. He takes another sip. Admittedly, I've enjoyed their luxuries, grown soft and fat on them. But I can't wait to be done interacting with these people. He smiles bitterly. Soon I'll be free of this place. Very soon. It's like he's talking to himself, and you just happen to be here. You furrow your brow in bewilderment but stay quiet, listening to his slurred lament. If only I could live in the forest but still be covered in silks. If only I could be weighted on hand and foot, safe from predators and weather and the mildest of discomforts, without having to live among these brainless monsters. He coughs wetly. But I must play their games to win them. Kahai and his wild masters, they don't realize that. Our true power comes not from confrontation but subversion. In the midst of this rant, his eyes have glazed over, his mouth frothing at the corners with wild passion. But he suddenly seems to come back to himself as his gaze finally rests on you. Ah, why am I spilling my heart to a peasant? How far the mighty have fallen. He laughs, flailing a hand in careless dismissal. Oh well. Never mind. By the time you leave this room, you will be too drunk to remember. His eyes narrow menacingly. You'd better be. Under the heat of his gaze, you chuckle nervously. Goodbye, Noboru. The danger in his tone, his stare, makes your Valpine instincts kick into high gear. You hurry to the door as quickly as you can without attracting suspicion. Your heart is pounding in your ears, your thoughts racing with the secrets that just stumbled off Noboru's tongue. Just who, or what, is Noboru? The evidence you've heard makes you afraid of the answer. Your pulse is throbbing, your guts twisting with the wrongness of it. Is Noboru a fox spirit? You exit the bar and then duck into an alley to return to your Valpine form. As you trot away through the village, wondering where to go next, your thoughts are interrupted by the sound of soft footsteps padding toward you down the street. Turning, you see Kasura, the white fox spirit with silvery tips to their fur. Hello, Silver, says Kasura. The divine messenger beckons to you with their tails, which shimmer in the afternoon sun. Follow me, please. The goddess wants to see you. The wet gravel crunches and skitters beneath your paws as you bound after Kasura, heading down the path from the village to Inari's shrine at the edge of the forest. The last droplets of an earlier rain patter down through the leaves overhead, sprinkling your grey fur with the sky's tears. The clouds that hovered on the edges of the heavens this morning have now overtaken the sky, so though it is only evening, the wood already seems dark as night. Stone lanterns line the path, as do statues of fox spirits wearing red bibs. Like Kasura, the statues have a silvery sheen to the tips of their lifelike fur. Their keen gazes follow you as you run. It feels good to run, to let your muscles coil and uncoil like springs launching you forward, your tail streaming behind you like twin rivers. The damp forest air fills your lungs. Its coolness soothes the heat building beneath your pelt. Your claws scrabble over the small, loose stones that pave the path. The forest chirps and hoots and teems with life. Eventually, a vermilion archway leads you up the steps to the path through the grounds of the shrine. To the left, a fountain burbles under a wooden roof. You see human visitors stopping there to wash their hands and faces. A lush garden sprawls toward and around the main temple of the shrine. A forest of fragrances fills the air. Butterflies and bees dart lazily from blossom to blossom, their flight paths made crooked by the weight of the leftover raindrops falling from overhead. The wood mingles organically with the garden. The overall result is that the garden looks natural and wild but still tidy and well kept. The garden seems to have 1,000 winding paths. From here, you can't see where all of them lead. From the boughs of an ancient pine at the center of the shrine hang wooden plaques inscribed with the prayers and wishes of faithful humans. The tablets sway in the wind but stay firmly attached to the pine. Human clergy in red and white robes stride purposefully past you across the grounds, as do a number of fox spirits. Whatever their base coat color, all the fox spirits here have that unearthly silvery sheen to their fur when they move. There are also many ordinary people here, in family groups, pairs, or alone. They greet the statues in the garden and the temple, kneeling before them and leaving offerings of incense and food. You follow Kasura across the garden and up another staircase to the main temple of the shrine, a towering, lead crimson building. Large fox spirit statues guard the open entryway on either side. Through the entrance is a hallway where people make offerings and pay homage to Inari. Beyond this hallway lies another that leads into deep darkness. The darkness radiates comfort and welcome, like the entrance to your old family den. Here we are, Kasura says. They steal a glance back at you over their shoulder. Are you ready? In your heart you know that whether you're ready or not, this is going to happen. One cannot simply decline a summons from a goddess. If Inari wants to see you now, she will. You mull this truth over as you decide how to respond. No, I don't want to meet Inari. Yes. I can't wait to meet Inari. Is Inari ready for me? Kasura smiles. You won't be disappointed. She is even more wondrous than the stories say. Kasura trots forward into the blackness. Follow me, they call back to you, hidden somewhere in the dark passage. Your eyes adjust quickly to the low light. You pad after the swish of Kasura's retreating tails until they come to a stop at the end of the hallway. A piercing light, pale as snow yet fierce as the sun, shines up ahead. The darkness alone was no problem for your eyes, but the stark contrast between the brightness and the shadows confuses your vision. As a result, your eyes take longer to acclimate. When you finally can see again, you gasp. A vivid figure towers over you, looming up toward the temple ceiling. She is silver, like moonlight, like the subtle sheen of Kasura's fur. She appears humanoid, but her form is shifting, fluid, like specks of light reflected on the surface of a flowing river. Hello, Silver, says the goddess Inari in a voice like the song of 1,000 stars. Your jaws fall open. You tilt your muzzle upward to gaze upon her, to try to take in the sheer magnitude of her presence. But it is like trying to lap up the ocean on your tongue. Like trying to count all the trees in a forest while you are standing in one part of it, small and solitary. Kasura steps forward and bows, stretching their forelegs forward and lowering their head. My goddess. I will my mind to be clear and still to better reflect your light. May it be so. Rise, Kasura. Kasura rises and then glances at you. Do you bow to Inari? Yes. I am in awe of her, and I want to show my devotion. Yes. Kasura did it and I don't want to upset them. No, I bow to no one. No. I'm too afraid. You refuse to grovel at this goddess's feet. You are an independent creature, and you don't need to rely on any deity's blessing to make your way in this world. Kasura's hackles rise a little when they see you standing defiantly, your ears erect and your tails held high. If Inari is displeased, she doesn't show it, at least, not in a way you understand. Her body is made of rippling light, so you can't clearly discern any facial features on her vaguely humanoid form. Silver, says Inari with that musical voice. Welcome to Hoshimori. Kasura has brought you to me so that I may ask for your aid. I have seen a vision of 3 human travelers who are lost in the woods on the other side of the mountains. If they stray much further before dark, they won't find a warm, safe place to shelter for the night. I would like you to help Kasura find the travelers and lead them safely to the village. You are still reeling from the sight of the goddess. Suddenly, the shrine vanishes in a flash of light, and before you, you see the humans. They are stumbling through the trees. The child is crying. The woman struggles to light a torch that has been dampened by the rain. With a bang, you find yourself occupying your own body again. You come back into yourself, your forepaws, your long muzzle, your quivering whiskers, your twitching ears, your swishing tails. But the goddess is no longer visible. You hear the echo of her voice in your head, do as I ask. Bring my light to the lost. The words trail off into silence. As your eyes adjust to the darkness, you blink at Kasura. What was that about, you ask? Kasura gazes deeply into your eyes. Inari is always searching for new divine messengers, fox spirits who can carry out her will in the world. Most humans are not able to perceive the goddess in her true form. But we fox spirits can, because of our magic and our vulpine senses. We walk easily through the veil between this world and others. I am a recruiter of sorts for Inari. When new fox spirits appear in Hoshimori, she asks me to bring them here so she may present them with tasks to perform. Those who succeed at the goddess's tasks are invited to start down the path to becoming divine messengers. Kasura scratches absently behind their ear with their hind leg. The movement causes that silver sheen to ripple through their fur again, the same intangible color as Inari's light. How do you feel about Kasura and Inari entrusting you with this task? I'm happy to help. I wonder if I will be rewarded for my efforts. I'll pretend to agree to this. For now. The fact that the goddess gave you this responsibility fills you with joy. You think you will enjoy this chance to assist people in need. You rush through the forest behind Kasura. The sharp scent of pine trees prickles through your lungs with each breath. To you, the smells of the forest are like a symphony, a variety of diverse elements mingling to form one cohesive whole. The smells are also like a map or a storybook. They tell you what animals have passed by and marked each tree, what direction they were going, whether they were sick or well. Forests overflow with stories, especially to a nose as keen as yours. You pass an oak with a trunk that was scoured by a bear. Your paws crunch across fallen needles, cones, and leaves. Mice, squirrels, and chipmunks scurry through the undergrowth, fleeing the danger their instincts warn them to expect from the pungent aroma of foxes. Your eyes, which were designed by nature to excel at detecting motion, capture their every move. You have traveled for hours already, in the fading light. The unearthly silver sheen of Kasura's white fur is like a beacon ahead of you, nearly as pale and bright as the emerging moon. Though you can't see Kasura's face while they are running ahead of you, you can smell their anxiety as clear as day. They are tangibly preoccupied with concern for the lost travelers. You wonder how you might assuage the divine messenger's fears. Tell stories about myself. Say a soothing prayer. Point out beautiful sights on our walk. Look, Kasura, you call. There's a lovely flower under that tree there, to the left. Ahead of you, Kasura swings their muzzle in that direction, squinting in the fading light. Where, exactly? At the base of the third largest stone pine in that stand to the northwest, in a hassock of cotton grass that smells like a badger. Your nostrils twitch, and your ears flick. It's got yellow petals. It's a globe flower. Do you see it? After a moment, Kasura's eyes widen, and they gasp. Oh my, yes. It's beautiful. Their tails wag. Thank you for pointing it out to me. As you journey onward, you continue to point out pleasant details in your surroundings to Kasura. Whenever you do this, their breathing gets calmer, and they seem a little more relaxed. Kasura's pace slows for a moment. As you close the distance between you, they glance at you over their shoulder. Their muzzle twitches in a small smile and their tails slowly wag. Your keen ability to notice and describe minute details has clearly soothed the divine messenger. Eventually, the ground slopes upward, leading you up the side of a mountain. Inari indicated that the lost travelers are on the other side. The air is colder here, due to the higher elevation and the descending night. Your breath emerges in short puffs of cloud from your pointed snout. Suddenly, you hear a cry. Kasura stepped on a stone that was too loose, and the ground gave way beneath their paws. Now they are trapped beneath a pile of rocks. If Kasura falls any further down the slope, they will tumble into you. Kasura whines under their breath, pawing at the rocks on top of them. I'm terribly sorry for my clumsiness, Silver. Can you please help me get loose? Knock the biggest rock off Kasura with a powerful strike. Deftly pour away a few small rocks to make a well-placed opening for Kasura. Dig tirelessly through the pile until Kasura is free. Quickly catch a tumbling branch in my teeth and use it to sweep the rocks away. You come up to Kasura, press your hind paws firmly into the slope behind you to anchor yourself, and start digging in the pile with your forepaws. You think you have the stamina to tunnel all the way through the pile to Kasura without getting worn out. It works. After a lot of panting and digging, you make it all the way through the pile to Kasura. Kasura emerges from the pile, gasping. Thanks, Silver. Kasura says. I appreciate your help. Their ears pull back, and their body lowers into an embarrassed crouch. Really sorry about that. I shouldn't waste our time. We have an important mission ahead of us. Kasura smiles sheepishly at you before trotting further up the mountain. You follow. By the time you arrive on the other side of the mountain, night has fallen. You and Kasura skitter to a halt at the bottom of the rocky slope. Boulders and logs loom around you like shadowy monsters. Stars twinkle feebly through the lattice of branches overhead. The air is so chilly now that you shiver despite your fur coat, briefly wrapping your tails around yourself to stave off the cold. An owl hoots in the distance, and your ears swivel toward the melancholy sound. Kasura casts a worried look up at the dark silhouettes of the trees. Night time. I hope the travelers are safe. Let's split up, they suggest, turning to you. That way we'll have a better chance of finding them soon. Kasura turns quickly, veering east along a deer trail. That leaves you to head west beside a brook that chortles ominously in the darkness. After a while, you see the weak glow of torchlight up ahead. The travelers. Huddled in a clump of trees near the bank of the brook, they don't see you yet. You pause and stare at them. Clearly, helping them would be the kind thing to do, and it is what Kasura and Inari expect of you, your first step to becoming a divine messenger. Is that really what you want, though? You never asked to be drafted into serving the goddess. As a fox spirit, a wild and powerful magical creature, many other paths are available to you. You could become a fierce demon, a wily trickster, a folk hero, if you have what it takes to pursue one of these roles. What do you desire most deeply? How do you want to be known in this world? If you lead the humans astray, you will increase your reputation for guile and deception. If you frighten the humans with a devilish display of magic, you will bolster your notoriety as a beast of formidable power. What legends do you want people to tell about you? Are you a fox spirit who follows the rules and does what he is told, or does your wild heart lead you to blaze your own path, even if that path leads through fire and darkness? Still hidden in the shadows of the trees, you glance at the humans again. Then you decide what to try. Use Foxfire to lead them to Hoshimori in the name of Inari. Cast a devious illusion to lead them further from Hoshimori. Sneak over and possess the child into attacking their parents. Persuade them with my charisma, not Inari's name. Shapeshift, leading them to Hoshimori. You step out from the shadows of the trees and approach the travelers huddled on the bank. Hail, travelers, you call. The humans peer fearfully in the direction of your voice. Who's there? Calls the woman. They can't see you yet. You always forget how pathetic human eyesight is at night. You step closer, into the weak glimmer of their torchlight. Their eyes widen as they finally spot you. Greetings, you say, flashing the humans a friendly smile. I'm Silver. I heard about your plight, so I'm here to rescue you. Because that's what heroes do. The child bounces on the balls of their feet. A real-life hero, the youngster gasps. You laugh, nuzzling the child with your nose. That's me. The child giggles, tussling your whiskers. You tolerate the contact good-naturedly. Then you turn to face the child's parents. They beam at you. You seem to have won them over. I am going to use magic to turn into an owl so I can fly a short distance ahead of you and scout for danger, you inform them. Follow me closely, and I will lead you back to the village. The adults nod. Lowering your head, you close your eyes and concentrate on shape-shifting. Your bones grind and shift and lighten, and feathers ripple along your body, replacing your fur. Your muzzle shortens, hardening into a hooked beak. Your ears crinkle, folding back into the sides of your head like wilting flowers. Your hind paw digits split and thin, becoming spindly, wicked talons. Your forelegs arc from your sides, flaring into wings. When you open your eyes, you're an owl. Feeling a tantalizing breeze against your feathers, you lift your wings and take to the air. The humans follow you as you glide through the trees. With your keen night vision, you quickly spy Kasura's pale form up ahead. You circle once above the fox spirit's head. Kasura looks up and spots you, and then they spot the humans following behind you with a torch. Silver. Kasura cries. You found them. You turn, sharply angling your wings, and lead the humans toward the mountain with Kasura racing after all of you. You have to fly slower than you otherwise would so the humans can keep up with you. But soon enough, you reach Hoshimori. The travelers are very grateful and promise that they will remember your heroism and tell others about you. While you and Kasura are trotting through the forest, heading back to the shrine, you suddenly catch the odor of an unfamiliar dog fox. You stop in your tracks, lifting your head to sniff the wind, and then suddenly he materializes, a red shape slinking from the shadows. Slick is the first word that comes to mind when you look at him. Fluid. Smooth. He is effortless poised, almost suspiciously so. His scarlet pelt is so vibrant that it burns your eyes. A sly smile splits his muzzle as he circles you, his 9 tails wreathing you like white-tipped flames. His green eyes catch like a spark and refuse to let you go. Well, hello there, the stranger says in a velvety voice. You stare at him, shocked. 9 tails. He is older than any fox spirit you've ever met. Yet he seems so young and spry. He is larger than Kasura, larger than you, nearly wolf-like in his bearing. But the glint in his eye makes him look like a kid who just got away with something. Kasura looks on warily from 3 feet away, their ears flattened and their black eyes narrowed. Do we know you? Kasura asks. You are surprised to hear a bristly edge in the white fox spirit's voice. My name is Kahai, the red fox spirit replies lazily. You may have heard of me. Kasura gasps, and their fur stands on end. You swallow a yelp as the name resurfaces from your memories of your parents' stories. Kahai, leader of the Wild Masters. Kahai chuckles. I guess you have. Kahai turns to you. What about you? Do you have anything to say? The Wild Master grins, showing off his dazzlingly white teeth. Are you one of the fox spirits who've been threatening innocent people in Hoshimori? You're the legendary Wild Master Kahai. It's an honor to meet you. If you're up to any mischief, we'll find out and stop you. Pleased to meet you, you dashing fox. Kahai's tails writhe like snakes as his grin turns into a skull. Innocent people. No such thing. Humans are a cancer. His volume builds like wildfire as he glares at you. They take what they need and destroy what they deem too wild for them to use and abuse. They have no concern for other creatures. That's not true, Kasura interrupts. Humans are capable of incredible compassion and kindness. I have seen it. Kahai whirls toward Kasura. I've been alive more than 800 years, Kahai says darkly. Don't tell me what is or isn't true. Kasura shakes their head and frowns. You didn't answer Silver's question. Are the rumors true? Have you been threatening the people of Hoshimori? Causing such harm to others defies the will of Inari. If you have been causing it, I would like to know why. I would like you to stop. I have faith that we can resolve this conflict peacefully. Kahai barks out a laugh. Quite the preacher, aren't you? He looks disdainfully from you to Kasura and sighs. How little you know. Kahai turns away with an impressive, rippling flick of all 9 tails. I'd better go. See you around. With a bang and a scent like smoke that scorches your nostrils, he is gone. Just vanished. No scent now. No anything. You stare at the empty air where he once stood. Whatever that was, it was powerful magic. You and Kasura return to the shrine. Again you walk into the mysterious yet oddly familiar deep darkness of the tunnel-like hallway in the main shrine. You reach the end of the hallway and stand before the moon-radiant Inari. She ripples like a koi pond struck by the delicate force of a fallen leaf. Warmth radiates from her impressive form in tendrils, brushing against you like another fox's fur. Kasura performs the bowing ritual again, then reports, "We rescued the travelers, my goddess." I know. Her voice echoes in your mind, closer than thought. Her satisfaction pours into you. It feels like springtime. You have performed admirably in my service, Kasura, as always, says the goddess. She turns toward you. And you, Silver. Thank you for helping Kasura to bring my light to the lost. She shimmers like fractured starlight. I may call on you again to spread my word to those in need. If you continue to prove yourself, I will consider inducting you into the ranks of my official messengers. The path of a divine messenger is not always easy, but the rewards are greater than anything this world has to offer. I look after those I have chosen to walk my path. I hope you will consider this. Inari starts to fade, like sunset dissolving into twilight. And then, all at once, she is gone again, and there's a momentary hollowness in your heart that you can't explain. How do you feel about the goddess's offer? Excited. I would love to help others as a divine messenger. Annoyed. I don't want to be a divine messenger. But she didn't ask me. Uncertain. I don't know how to feel yet. I'm weighing my options. You follow Kasura outside and around a corner of the main shrine. There you see, dug against the wall of the building, the opening of a burrow. Fox spirits live here. You squeeze into the hole after Kasura. A branch from the main tunnel leads to an earthen chamber, not unlike your natal den. It is warm and dark and cozy, the perfect shelter for a fox. Kasura turns and looks at you. There is a whole network of tunnels under the shrine for Inari's Valpine messengers. This chamber is my personal quarters. You're welcome to stay the night here. I know you must be exhausted after all the traveling we did today. Your aching muscles and heavy eyelids agree with Kasura. You're too fatigued to go out again and search for another place to sleep. But you feel compelled to at least try to express your gratitude before you settle in for the night. Do a rapid-fire spring cleaning of the burrow with my tails. Use magic to perform a clever remodeling job. Lay on the charm, praising them for their home and way of life. Thank you so much for your kindness, Kasura, you mumble, stifling a yawn. I want to help you too. You set to work sweeping the dust and dead insects from the far corners of the burrow with your tails. But you aren't fast enough to finish the job before exhaustion overtakes you. Instead, you collapse to the dirt, leaving a pile of debris in the center of the den. Kasura wrinkles their muzzle in bafflement and disgust, but you aren't quick enough to explain what you were trying to do before drowsiness softens your thoughts into silence. You curl up a few feet from Kasura and close your eyes. Sleep pounces on you like a kit on a butterfly. You dream.